April 23, 2012. 4 years. In that span of time, everything had changed. I changed. My friends changed. My family changed. Even my outlook on life twisted into something unrecognizable. Now, I carry a scar on my neck, a constant reminder of the mistakes I've made. A friend is dead because of me, and I've lost count of the people I've killed since. All because of one damned mission. January 1, 2012. The Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters was alive with energy. The annual New Year's Eve party had reached its crescendo, the mansion's great hall filled with music, laughter, and jubilation. As the countdown ended and the clock struck midnight, cheers erupted across the room. Happy New Year! The crowd shouted in unison. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Couples kissed, friends exchanged well wishes, and Rogue, Anna Marie, seized her moment. She grabbed Aiden by the arm, spun him around, and planted a firm kiss on his lips. Caught off guard but not unprepared, Aiden responded instinctively. This wasn't his first kiss, nor was it the first time one of the girls at the school had made a bold move. The truth was, Aiden's love life had become the stuff of school legend. Though he wasn't officially dating anyone, the rumors painted a different picture. Whispers in the halls claimed he had been romantically involved with Kitty Pryde, Jubilation Lee, Rogue, and even Noriko Ashita. The reality, however, was far more chaotic. Aiden hadn't pursued any of them. Instead, it was the girls waging a quiet civil war for his attention. Kitty had managed to steal his first kiss during a training session, sneaking it in when he was too focused to notice. Jubilation, on the other hand, went big, kissing him in front of the entire class just to assert her dominance. Noriko had taken a more creative approach, challenging him to a one-on-one sparring match. She lost, of course, but claimed her prize, a kiss, as a reward for the victor. 3. And now, on the biggest stage of all, Rogue had swooped in to make her mark. As the New Year's Eve countdown ended, she secured her victory in the most dramatic fashion possible. It had been, without a doubt, a very kissy year for Aiden. "I love you, Aiden," Rogue shouted, her southern accent cutting through the music as she danced with him. Aiden pretended not to hear her, grinning mischievously. "Wah?" he teased, letting the loud music serve as his excuse. As the song shifted, he made his escape, claiming he needed a moment in the bathroom. In the quiet of the restroom, Aiden splashed cold water on his face and stared at his reflection in the mirror. "It's happening again," he thought, gripping the edge of the sink. "They love me. But I can't let them get too close. I'm too old for this, mentally, anyway. 31 in a 16-year-old body. It's not fair to them. Or me." The door burst open, breaking his reverie. Bobby, Pyotr, and John sauntered in, their usual antics filling the room with noise. "Yo, Aiden," Bobby called out, grinning. "Heard about your latest exploit." "Rogue, huh? Better stay away from my Amara, dude." "Your Amara?" John growled, stepping forward. "She's mine, you frosty popsicle." As the two butted heads, Pyotr chuckled, his deep voice cutting through their bickering. "Not that I want to interrupt, but 4? That's quite the number, Aiden." Aiden groaned, running a hand through his hair. "Don't even start, Pyotr. I'm not dating any of them. You're supposed to be the sane one here. Don't ruin that." Pyotr smirked. "It's fun to joke. But one day, you'll have to give them an answer. Better now than later." Aiden sighed heavily. "I don't have it in me, Pyotr. I'm not strong enough for that." "Strange to hear that from the youngest official X-Man," Pyotr teased. "That's not official," Aiden muttered. "Actually," Bobby began, his argument with John momentarily forgotten. "Storm and Jean were talking to your mom, dude. We overheard them." "Talking about what?" Aiden asked, frowning. "Permission," Bobby said, his grin widening. "Permission for what?" "I've been on missions with them for 2 years now. That's nothing new." "No, Aiden," Bobby replied, practically bouncing on his heels. "Permission for you to lead us." Aiden froze. "What?" "It's true," Pyotr confirmed with a nod. "They're forming a second team, X-Men Class 02. We'll be the backup team, and you'll be leading us." John smirked, conjuring a small flame in his palm. "Congrats, boss. Isn't that wild?" "Leader?" Aiden muttered, his mind racing. It wasn't that he doubted his combat skills. He'd proven himself in battle time and time again. But leadership was something entirely different: responsibility, strategy, and decisions that could cost lives. "Not only that," Pyotr added, his tone steady. We might get our first mission soon. Someone will supervise, but it'll be ours. A real team effort. Aiden nodded slowly, processing the weight of the revelation. That's kinda very exciting. And so it was official. 2 days had passed since Xavier had named Aiden the leader of the future X-Men team, X-Men Class 02. The news had spread quickly, sparking excitement and nervous energy throughout the mansion. Training had been doubled during this period, everyone preparing for their first mission under Aiden's leadership. It's not something dangerous per se, Xavier said, his voice steady and reassuring as he addressed Aiden. But we're confident it will be a challenge for you all. As such, we've decided to send someone with you, just in case. Aiden, standing by the desk, arched an eyebrow. He'd been anticipating something like this. Xavier had always been cautious, even more so with Aiden. Over the years, Xavier had been the only one to suspect that Aiden's powers and potential went beyond the ordinary. But even so, Charles knew Aiden could do good in the world. He saw the strength and the hard work the young leader had put in over the years. And, of course, he saw the power Aiden held. Okay, but who are you sending? Aiden asked, his tone casual yet skeptical. Before Xavier could respond, the door to the office swung open with a heavy creak. A hulking figure strode in, the unmistakable scent of tobacco filling the air. A messy mane of hair and a scruffy beard framed the man's face, his muscular arms were tattooed and covered in scars. A cigar dangled from his mouth, puffing out smoke as he walked with the confidence of someone who had been through countless battles. Why'd you call me, Charles? The man growled, barely acknowledging Aiden as he passed. Aiden blinked, staring at the man in disbelief, his gaze darting from him to Xavier. You've got to be kidding me, he muttered under his breath. Charles smiled, a knowing glint in his eyes as he made the mock introductions. Aiden Blake, this is Logan, also known as Wolverine. Logan, this is Aiden Blake. His X-Men name is Dragon. Actually, I believe you two are acquainted already, correct? Dragon? Aiden's voice rose in disbelief. You can't be serious. And why him of all people? Why not Storm or Beast? He complained, crossing his arms in frustration. Logan, not even slightly concerned, dropped into a chair with a grunt, his eyes locked on Aiden. You sending me on a mission with this brat? He scowled, taking a long drag from his cigar. I refuse. Aiden glared at Charles, not bothering to hide his irritation. This guy's not teacher material. I need someone who can help me with leadership, not a damn animal. Charles didn't flinch, his voice calm as ever. I'm sending Wolverine with you because he is my most trusted friend and someone I believe you'll learn a great deal from, Aiden. He represents the true essence of an X-Man. Aiden's frustration was palpable, but he could tell Xavier wasn't going to change his mind. With an exasperated sigh, he turned to Logan. Listen here, stay out of my fucking way, alright? I'm not like the others. I don't need you to screw everything up with your reckless nature, got it? Whatever, Logan grunted, not giving Aiden's words the time of day. He wasn't bothered in the slightest by the younger mutant's attitude. To anyone who might wonder why Aiden wasn't thrilled about Logan accompanying him on missions, the answer was simple, XP. See, Aiden had learned over time that he gained experience points from doing the most damage to enemies. However, whenever Logan was around, things tended to go south in the most chaotic ways possible. Logan's aggressive, unpredictable nature meant that Aiden often found himself on the sidelines, unable to participate in the real battles that usually went wrong. And the result? Aiden lost out on critical XP that would have helped him level up. 2. Simply put, Logan was an XP co-blocker, at least, he used to be. But this time would be different. Right? Aiden glanced at his system interface, checking his levels and making sure he was fully prepared. Stats. Level, 19, greater than 32. Exp, 76,435, 4,008 until next level. Extra stats, 0 greater than 13 greater than 0. Strength, 20 greater than 23 greater than 25. Agility, 14 greater than 17 greater than 20. Endurance, 10 greater than 13 greater than 15. Magic, 15 greater than 18 greater than 23. Resistance, 11 greater than 14 greater than 15. Charm, 8 greater than 11-7. Dragon Slayer Affinity, 2. Generation 1. Fire, 51%. Sky, 88% 3. Iron, 60%. Sage, 1%, 5. 3 stat increases to all stats due to me reaching the milestones, 20. 25. 30 and another 13 extra stats to distribute, Not bad for a very uneventful 4 years. Satisfied, he closed it with a swipe of his hand and stepped into the X-Men training room. Inside, everyone from Class 02 was waiting for him, their faces a mix of excitement and nerves. "Good morning, everyone," Aiden began, his confident tone drawing the group's attention. "I believe everyone knows that today will be our first mission. It's time for us to impress everyone and prove we're ready." A ripple of agreement swept through the room as the team nodded. Now, the mission is simple. A group of mutant traffickers is moving a shipment from Orange County to Delaware. We're going to intercept them, save the mutants, and take down anyone in our way. Understood? Understood. The group replied in unison, their enthusiasm contagious. Aiden unfolded the mission's plan step by step, outlining their roles and the importance of sticking to the strategy. When he finished, he clapped his hands. "All right, let's move." "Who's driving the jet?" Bobby asked, grinning with excitement. Aiden gave Bobby a pitying look and said, "About that." "You've got to be kidding me." Bobby groaned, staring at the cramped interior of the van. "Why are we cooped up in this thing? At least we could have taken a bus or something." John added, his arms crossed in frustration. "And reveal our location to the enemy?" Amara interjected with a raised eyebrow. Both boys blushed and quickly stammered, "Of course, you're right, Amara." John added, "You're the smartest one here." Amara rolled her eyes, but the others burst into laughter at the exchange. Meanwhile, Aiden leaned forward to slide open the window connecting the back of the van to the driver's seat. Logan was in the driver's seat, cigar firmly in place, puffing smoke as he drove. "Get ready, everyone," Aiden called back to the team. "We're close. I'm seeing about a dozen armed men and 2 mutants guarding the shipment." Logan glanced at him through the rearview mirror, smirking. "You're pretty prepared for this, eh?" Aiden sighed, already bracing himself for Logan's unpredictable nature. "Yes. Just don't ruin it." "Humph. We'll see about that," Logan said, taking another puff of his cigar. "Got a question, though. What'll you do if the plan goes wrong?" Aiden shrugged confidently. 2 mutants and a dozen soldiers? Come on, I could take this shipment on my own." Logan chuckled, shaking his head. "You've got confidence, that's good. Always trust yourself. But don't get cocky like the beast. Being smart is important. Making plans is necessary. But always prepare for the plan to go sideways. And lastly, don't get too full of yourself, little shit. No matter how special everyone says you are, no matter how many skills you've got, there's always someone stronger out there. Someone who's been waiting in the shadows to cut you down before you even bloom. So live life on the edge." Aiden raised an eyebrow at the unexpected wisdom, then smirked. "What, you're actually listening to Charles and giving me advice now?" "Shut up and get ready," Logan growled, though a faint smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "We're here. I'll cut off their truck, and you all attack. I'll hang back in case something goes wrong." "Got it," Aiden said, turning back to his team. "All right, everyone. This is it. Stick to the plan, stay sharp, and let's show them what we've got." The van screeched to a halt, cutting sharply across the convoy and forcing the vehicles to stop. Tires screeched, and the sharp smell of burnt rubber filled the air. Aiden climbed out first, his commanding presence rallying the team. "All right, here's the plan," he said, his voice steady and confident. "Fyodor, you're with me at the front. Bobby, Kitty, John, you're handling the back. Sam, Kevin, Amara, neutralize the soldiers from the left. Noriko, Jubilation, Rogue, same for the right. Move fast, stick to your roles, and don't get cocky." Bobby smirked. "Cocky? Who, me?" Aiden rolled his eyes. "Yeah, you. Now move." The team split up, each group heading toward their assigned targets. At the front of the convoy, a mutant covered in sharp spikes stepped out, his grin twisted with malice. "Think you can stop us, kid?" he sneered, launching a flurry of needles. "Sky Dragon's roar," Aiden shouted, inhaling deeply before unleashing a powerful, spiraling wind laced with razor-sharp edges. The gust tore through the air, scattering the needles and forcing the enemy to stumble back. Fyodor, fully armored in steel, charged forward like an unstoppable force. He plowed through the remaining projectiles, swinging a massive punch that sent needlepoint crashing into the side of a truck. The mutant retaliated, firing a volley of spikes that ricocheted harmlessly off Fyodor's metallic frame. Aiden leapt into action, closing the distance in a flash and delivering a spinning kick that sent a sharp gust of wind slamming into the enemy. Needlepoint tried to recover, but Pyotr's ironclad grip pinned him down as Aiden unleashed a slicing wave of compressed air, ending the fight decisively. At the back of the convoy, Toad emerged, his long tongue snapping out toward Bobby. "Ew, no," Bobby shouted, forming a shield of ice that deflected the attack. "Toad's mine," John said confidently, igniting a flame in his hand. While Toad prepared another strike, Kitty phased through the ground, reappearing behind him and landing a precise punch to his side. "Focus," Kitty yelled as Toad stumbled. John didn't waste the opening. He hurled a fiery projectile that forced Toad to leap backward, only for Bobby to freeze the ground beneath him. Toad slipped, flailing wildly as Bobby encased his legs in ice. "Still think you're hot stuff?" Bobby quipped. Toad lashed out with his tongue, but Kitty phased again, grabbing at midair and pulling Toad off balance. John followed up with a controlled burst of flames, and Toad crashed to the ground, unconscious. "Nice teamwork," Kitty said, dusting her hands. "Yeah, we're awesome," John added with a grin. On the left flank, Sam launched into the air like a rocket, slamming into the soldier's car and flipping it onto its side. Kevin advanced calmly, his gloved hand brushing against the door of the nearest car. The surface corroded instantly, crumbling into ash and forcing the soldiers to scramble out, only for Amara to trap them in molten rock with a flick of her hand. Another group of soldiers charged, but Kevin dissolved their weapons mid-attack. Sam swooped down, knocking them off their feet, while Amara's glowing hand sent a molten shockwave to immobilize the rest. On the right, Noriko darted forward in a blur of speed, disarming the soldiers before they could react. Jubilation followed up with a dazzling barrage of fireworks, the explosions stunning the soldiers and leaving them vulnerable. Rogue stepped in, effortlessly tossing the incapacitated men aside. One soldier attempted to grab her, only to collapse as she absorbed his strength with a touch. "Quick and clean," Noriko said with a grin, brushing her hair back confidently. The team regrouped, the tension easing as they celebrated their victory. "Not bad for our first mission," Kitty said, phasing back to the ground. "Could have been worse," Pyotr added with a shrug. Aiden approached the back of the convoy, calm but alert. "Let's see what's in here," he said, pulling the van's door open. Before he could react, a massive fist shot out, striking him square in the chest and sending him flying backward. Aiden crashed into the dirt, gasping for air as the rest of the team froze in shock. "Boss, they sent a bunch of kids." "No one important," said the giant who emerged from the truck. The vehicle groaned and shifted as if relieved of an immense weight. In front of Class 02 stood one of the strongest and most powerful mutants. Juggernaut. The dust from Juggernaut's massive steps settled as he strode toward the team. His sheer size and presence loomed over them, the battlefield growing eerily quiet. His crimson helmet gleamed under the faint light, and his smirk promised destruction. The younger X-Men team instinctively tightened their formation. Kitty glanced at Aiden standing up from the dust, her expression a mix of fear and determination. "Is this guy for real?" "He's huge," Bobby muttered, summoning a thin layer of ice over his arms. "Stand down, kids," Logan growled as he stepped forward, his claws extending with a menacing snick. "This one ain't your fight." Aiden was about to object, but Logan cut him off with a sharp glare. "I mean it. Fall back and keep your eyes open. There's always more trouble where this guy comes from." Juggernaut chuckled, his booming voice echoing. "Wolverine. Well, well. This just got interesting. But don't worry, little man. I brought some friends to keep your brats entertained." The back of the truck shifted with a heavy groan, and the team barely had time to react before a man leapt out, landing with a feral grin. "Miss me, runt?" he snarled, his sharp teeth glinting as he stalked toward Logan. "Didn't think I'd let you have all the fun, did ya?" "Sabretooth," Logan hissed, his voice dripping with venom. Before the team could regroup, another figure emerged from the shadows of the truck. She landed with a resounding thud, her imposing figure radiating confidence. She brushed a hand through her short hair and surveyed the young mutants with a smirk. "Seriously, Kane? This is it? A bunch of kids?" she said, cracking her knuckles. "Don't underestimate them," Frenzy Sabretooth said without looking back. "Kids these days pack a punch." "Fine by me," Frenzy replied, rolling her shoulders. "I've been itching for a good warm-up." "Eyes up!" Aiden barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. Kitty, Bobby, John, split up. Jubilation, Kevin, Noriko, cover their flanks. Stay sharp, and don't engage unless you have to. "Look at that," Frenzy teased. "The baby's trying to play leader. Adorable." Juggernaut grunted and waved her off. Do what you want with them. I've got bigger fish to fry. His eyes locked on Aiden for a moment before he turned back to Logan. He said we catch them and then wait, so start the catching. The battlefield erupted into chaos as Logan charged at Sabretooth, claws clashing against feral fury. Frenzy turned to the younger mutants, her smirk widening. All right, kids. Show me what you've got. And so the battle started. Frenzy versus Bobby's team. Sabretooth versus Logan. And finally, Juggernaut versus Aiden and his team 5. The air grew thick with tension as Frenzy stepped forward, her towering figure casting an ominous shadow over the group. Well, don't keep me waiting, she said, cracking her knuckles. I was promised a fight. So far, all I see are scared little kids. Let's show her what we've got. Noriko barked, electricity sparking around her as she dashed forward, fists charged with raw energy. Bobby followed, creating a path of ice beneath her feet to boost her speed. I'll cover you, he called, sending jagged ice spikes toward Frenzy to force her to defend. Frenzy smirked, catching Noriko's first electrified punch with her hand. The electricity crackled over her steel-like skin, but she held firm. With a powerful swing, she hurled Noriko into Bobby, sending them both crashing into a nearby car. Too easy, Frenzy scoffed, stepping over the growing layer of frost. Don't let her focus on one of us, Kitty yelled, phasing through the ground and reappearing behind Frenzy. She grabbed at Frenzy's leg, trying to unbalance her. John seized the opening, releasing a concentrated stream of fire from his hands. How do you like this? The flames engulfed Frenzy, but she marched forward undeterred, swiping at the air until she found John. Fire? Cute, but it's going to take more than that. She snarled, grabbing his arm and swinging him into Kitty before she could phase away. Stay focused, Jubilation shouted, unleashing a barrage of dazzling energy bursts that exploded like fireworks around Frenzy. Bright lights? What are you, a carnival act? Frenzy mocked, shielding her eyes briefly before charging straight at Jubilation. Kevin saw his chance and lunged from the side, his hand grazing her arm. The decay spread rapidly, leaving darkened patches across her steel-hard skin. That's new, Frenzy muttered, shaking her arm as the decayed patches cracked and fell away. She turned her attention to Kevin, her eyes narrowing. But it's not enough to stop me. She lunged at him, her fists swinging wide. Kevin ducked just in time, rolling away. Guys, keep hitting her, he shouted. Bobby froze the ground beneath Frenzy's feet, causing her to slip. Noriko darted in again, electricity crackling as she delivered a flurry of rapid punches. Nice teamwork, Frenzy said with a grin, grabbing Noriko mid-punch and slamming her into the frozen ground. The ice shattered beneath her. Noriko, Bobby yelled, launching another volley of ice spikes. Frenzy broke through them with a single punch, shards flying in every direction. She closed the distance to Bobby in a blink, delivering a devastating uppercut that sent him sprawling. Kitty phased back into the fight, appearing next to Jubilation. We need to slow her down. Jubilee, cover me. Jubilation nodded, releasing another wave of energy bursts that Frenzy batted away like flies. Kitty darted forward, trying to phase through Frenzy's arm and disrupt her balance. Smart move, Frenzy admitted, catching Kitty mid-phase and tossing her into Jubilation. Both crashed to the ground in a heap. John, bruised but still standing, unleashed another fiery assault. Frenzy stepped into the flames, her steel-like skin glowing faintly from the heat. Is that all you've got? She taunted, grabbing John by the collar and slamming him into the side of the van. Kevin, the last one standing, lunged again, his hand aimed for her face. You won't get all of us. Frenzy caught his wrist effortlessly, squeezing until he cried out in pain. You've got guts, kid, but guts won't win this fight. She flung him aside, leaving him sprawled in the dirt. One by one, the team lay defeated, bruised and bloodied. Frenzy stood over them, a triumphant smirk on her face. Pathetic, she said, brushing off a speck of dust from her shoulder. You've got power, but no skill. No experience. Next time, send someone who knows what they're doing. Frenzy turned, hearing a rush of wind, only to see a flying blur coming straight at her. She dodged instinctively, watching as the figure crashed hard into the ground, rolling to a stop. Her eyes narrowed as she recognized the kid, Aiden. Okay, kid, give it up, Frenzy taunted, cracking her knuckles. That's Juggernaut you're up against. I doubt you can do shit to him. You should be lucky to even be alive. Aiden didn't even acknowledge her words. He was staring ahead, his pink hair flaring wildly in the air like an inferno. His eyes were sharp, deadly, fueled with a rage so palpable it seemed to vibrate in the air around him. Looks like you won't listen to me, huh? Raging bull? Frenzy continued, a malicious grin creeping across her face. Come on, then. I'll knock you out before he ends up accidentally killing you off. It's kinda of a mercy. Before she could finish, Aiden's hands shot out with blinding speed. Her mocking words turned to a choked gasp as his ironclad grip wrapped around her face, slamming her into the ground with bone-crushing force. The impact shook the earth beneath them, dust and debris flying everywhere. Frenzy struggled, but Aiden's hands held firm, pressing harder against her skull. The pressure of the iron-like grip was enough to rattle her, she could feel her body creaking, but there was no escape. Aiden's eyes flickered with an intense focus. His grip on her face tightened for a split second, and with a sudden burst of strength, he leapt into the air, his body shooting upwards like a missile. Sky Dragon's crushing fang. The shout rang out, pure fury echoing in his voice. His fist shot downward like a meteor, crackling with ferocious wind energy. The sheer power of the punch split the air, sending a blast of gusts that shattered the ground beneath him. Frenzy's face absorbed the full force of Aiden's attack, her iron skin buckling under the weight of the magic. Cracks spread across her face, deep and jagged, but she didn't heal, the blow too powerful for her to recover from. The wind energy continued to rip through her body, tearing apart her defenses and slamming her into the earth with an earth-shaking crash. I'm gonna kill him, Aiden muttered under his breath, his voice filled with venom. I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna kill him. He didn't look back at Frenzy, her figure already irrelevant to him. His eyes locked onto the towering figure in the distance, the one responsible for everything. Juggernaut. The dust settled around the group as Juggernaut stood tall, his massive figure dwarfing everything in sight. His towering frame was intimidating, and the earth itself seemed to tremble beneath his weight. Aiden's heart raced, but his resolve held firm. Back off, all of you, Aiden commanded, his voice steady yet firm. The others exchanged glances, uncertainty flashing in their eyes. You can't take him alone, Pyotr said, stepping forward, his voice tinged with worry. I don't care, Aiden replied, narrowing his eyes. If we all charge in, he'll wipe us out. Stay back. If you see an opening, strike, but only then. Let me handle him. Rogue hesitated. But. No buts. I don't want anyone else getting hurt. Aiden's voice softened for just a moment, before his gaze locked onto Juggernaut. This is on me. Juggernaut laughed, the sound deep and rumbling like thunder. A kid thinks he can stop me? This'll be fun. Aiden didn't waste time with a retort. He launched forward, the ground beneath him cracking from the force of his jump. Aiden moved like a blur, using wind magic to propel himself forward and stay mobile. Sky Dragon's talon, he shouted, spinning midair as a whirlwind enveloped his leg. His kick collided with Juggernaut's chest, the sharp burst of wind slicing into his armor. Juggernaut barely flinched. Cute trick, he rumbled, swinging his massive fist toward Aiden. Aiden ducked and countered with Fire Dragon's iron fist, flames roared around his arm as he delivered a devastating punch to Juggernaut's jaw. The heat scorched the air, leaving blackened scorch marks on Juggernaut's helmet. Still, the behemoth stood unfazed. Aiden leapt back, his breathing heavy as thoughts raced through his mind. He's not even slowing down. I need to hit him harder. He dove in again, shouting, Iron Dragon's Club. His arm transformed into solid iron, slamming into Juggernaut's midsection with a sickening crunch. The sheer force of the blow created a shockwave, sending debris flying in all directions. Juggernaut staggered slightly but quickly regained his footing. He grinned, amused. Not bad for a runt, Juggernaut said, his voice mocking. But you're still not making a dent. Aiden darted away, wind swirling around him as he tried to reassess. Think, Aiden. He's stronger, tougher, and nothing's slowing him down. I have to make an opening. For their sake. He glanced back at the others, standing tensely on the sidelines. I won't let him hurt them. I can't. Sky Dragon's roar, Aiden roared, unleashing a powerful torrent of wind from his mouth. The howling gale slammed into Juggernaut, pushing him back slightly but doing little more than ruffling his cape. Juggernaut charged through the attack, his footsteps shaking the ground. Aiden gritted his teeth and leapt over him, twisting in the air. Fire Dragon's wing attack. Flames erupted from his arms, creating twin arcs of fire that slashed down on Juggernaut. The flames danced around him, licking at his armor but failing to penetrate. Juggernaut swatted at the air, dispersing the fire like it was nothing. Getting tired yet, kid? Juggernaut taunted, his grin widening. Aiden landed in front of him, panting. His arms throbbed from the strain of his magic, and his mind was racing. Nothing's working. He's too strong. But I can't stop now. I have to protect them. Sky Dragon's crushing fang, Aiden yelled, surging forward with a spiraling punch encased in wind energy. The strike connected with Juggernaut's side, creating a powerful shockwave that echoed across the battlefield. Juggernaut didn't even flinch. Enough games, Juggernaut growled, his massive hand shooting out like a battering ram. Aiden's eyes widened as the fist slammed into him, the impact knocking the wind from his lungs. He was sent hurtling back, skidding across the ground as pain exploded through his body. Juggernaut stomped toward him, unrelenting. Aiden forced himself to stand, his body trembling with exhaustion. Still standing? I'll fix that, Juggernaut said. He reached out, his hand closing around Aiden's torso like a vice. Aiden struggled, thrashing against the grip, but it was no use. Juggernaut raised him high into the air and slammed him into the ground with earth-shattering force. Aiden's vision blurred as pain coursed through his body. Juggernaut spun him like a ragdoll, his laughter booming. And this is why kids shouldn't play with the big boys. With a final heave, Juggernaut hurled Aiden across the battlefield. His body crashed into the van with a deafening clang, crumpling it like paper. The impact left a gaping hole as Aiden slumped to the ground, his consciousness slipping away. Darkness crept in around the edges of his vision as he fought to stay awake. I have to protect. Everything went black. Juggernaut wiped the dust from his massive hands, turning toward the others with a sadistic grin. Well, looks like the kid's down. Now, who's next? His voice echoed, a cruel promise of pain to come. Rogue's eyes narrowed as she crept closer behind him, silent as a shadow. While Juggernaut turned to mock the others, she leapt forward, her bare hands pressing firmly against the back of his neck. Let's see how you like your own strength, she hissed. Her power surged as she attempted to absorb his abilities. For a brief moment, her eyes widened in shock as she felt his overwhelming power, like trying to swallow a hurricane. Juggernaut stiffened, realizing what was happening. His laughter rumbled like an earthquake. Oh, you're a tricky one, he said, his voice strangely calm. But you picked the wrong guy to mess with. He grunted, his body resisting her pull with an unnatural force. Rogue's hands burned as if she were gripping molten steel. Sweat dripped down her face as she struggled to maintain the connection. Suddenly, a pulse of energy pushed her back, and she stumbled, clutching her head. What the hell? She muttered, gasping for air. Juggernaut turned slowly, his massive frame casting a shadow over her. His expression was different, less amused and more calculating. I could have killed you for that, but I won't, he said, his tone almost casual. Not yet, anyway. You're too useful for him alive. Before Rogue could react, his massive hand swept toward her. The strike wasn't as brutal as it could have been, but it was enough to send her crashing into the ground, her head hitting hard. She lay there, unconscious but alive. Stay down, sweetheart, Juggernaut muttered. You'll thank me later. Now where were we, spoke Juggernaut in a haughty manner as he turned towards the remaining three, Amara, Sam and Pyotr. Amara's fists ignited, flames roaring to life as molten cracks spread across her skin. You'll pay for that, she yelled, her voice trembling with rage. She unleashed a wave of molten lava at Juggernaut, the ground beneath him glowing red-hot. Steam hissed as the lava tried to engulf him, but Juggernaut walked through it like it was nothing. Is this supposed to scare me? He mocked, grabbing a chunk of molten rock and hurling it at her. Amara dodged, rolling to the side before charging again. She delivered a series of fiery punches to his torso, her flames licking at his armor. Juggernaut grunted, the heat finally beginning to irritate him. But then he roared, swinging his massive arm. His fist collided with Amara's side, sending her flying. She crashed into a nearby tree, the bark splintering on impact. Amara tried to stand, coughing up blood, but collapsed moments later. Pyotr stepped forward, his body shifting into his metallic form. His towering figure seemed almost small compared to Juggernaut's. You will not hurt anyone else, Pyotr said, his voice steady but filled with quiet fury. He charged, his steel fists meeting Juggernaut's unyielding frame in a brutal clash. The sound of metal striking metal echoed across the battlefield as Pyotr landed several powerful punches, forcing Juggernaut to step back. You've got some fight in you, Juggernaut admitted, swinging his massive arm. Pyotr blocked, gritting his teeth as the sheer force of the blow drove him to one knee. Summoning every ounce of his strength, Pyotr lunged again, landing a powerful uppercut to Juggernaut's jaw. The behemoth stumbled slightly, giving the others hope. But it was short-lived. Juggernaut grabbed Pyotr by the shoulders and headbutted him with a sickening crunch. Pyotr's metallic form crumpled as Juggernaut hurled him across the field. He smashed into a boulder, slumping to the ground unconscious. Sam clenched his fists, his body trembling with rage and fear. "You want to fight? Let's go," he yelled, activating his rocket-like powers. He blasted toward Juggernaut, zigzagging in the air to avoid the behemoth's swipes. Sam spotted a metal pole lying among the debris and grabbed it mid-flight. "Take this, you bastard," Sam roared, rocketing toward Juggernaut's leg. With all his strength and speed, he drove the pole straight into Juggernaut's thigh. Juggernaut roared in pain, staggering for the first time as the pole embedded itself deep into his muscle. Blood oozed from the wound, and for a brief moment, hope flickered among the group. But that hope was shattered in an instant. Juggernaut's massive hand shot out, grabbing Sam by the neck. The young mutant struggled, his hands clawing at Juggernaut's iron grip. "You little punk," Juggernaut growled, his voice low and furious. "You actually hurt me." Juggernaut delivered a devastating punch to Sam's stomach, the impact echoing like thunder. He hit him again, and again, each blow brutal and unrelenting. Blood splattered onto the ground as Sam's body went limp. "No." Rogue's voice cracked as she regained consciousness, watching helplessly. The others screamed in terror, powerless to intervene. Juggernaut tightened his grip on Sam's neck. "You die for that." With a sickening crack, Juggernaut snapped Sam's neck and tossed his lifeless body to the ground like a broken doll. The van's door creaked open, and Aiden stumbled out, his vision still blurry from the earlier impact. He rubbed his head, groaning, until his eyes focused on the scene before him. His breath hitched. Sam's body lay crumpled on the ground, his neck twisted at an unnatural angle. Blood pooled beneath him, staining the earth. "No. No," Aiden whispered, his voice shaking. The world seemed to blur as rage and despair surged through him. He fell to his knees, his fists clenching so tightly that his nails dug into his palms. "Sam." Aiden choked out, his voice cracking. Juggernaut turned toward him, his blood-streaked grin widening. "You're awake. Good. Now it's your turn." Aiden's eyes burned as his magic flared to life around him, wind whipping into a frenzied storm. His voice trembled with anger. "You're going to pay for this," he whispered, his voice growing louder with each word. "I'm going to make you pay." The air grew heavy, charged with an unnatural energy. Juggernaut turned, his massive frame looming as he spotted Aiden crawling out of the wrecked van. The boy's head hung low, his body trembling, not from fear, but from something far more dangerous. Aiden's hair began to shimmer, shifting from its usual hue to a blazing, fiery pink. The winds around him swirled violently, forming a vortex that seemed to draw in the very essence of the battlefield. His eyes glowed with a fierce determination, and a primal roar erupted from his chest. "What the hell is this?" Juggernaut muttered, his grin faltering for the first time as he witnessed what later would be recognized as Dragon Force. The winds howled as Aiden launched himself at Juggernaut, his movements a blur. He appeared above the massive mutant in an instant, his fists wrapped in spiraling gusts of wind. "Sky Dragon's wing attack," Aiden bellowed, slamming both fists into Juggernaut's shoulders. The force of the impact sent the behemoth stumbling back, his feet dragging through the dirt. Juggernaut roared in frustration, swinging a massive arm, but Aiden was already gone, moving with the speed of a tempest. He darted around his foe, each strike leaving trails of cutting wind that sliced through Juggernaut's armor-like skin. "Sky Dragon's crushing fang," Aiden shouted, driving his ironclad fist into Juggernaut's wounded leg. The strike landed with a resounding crack, forcing Juggernaut to his knees. A visible dent formed where Aiden's fist had struck. Juggernaut growled, his hands slamming into the ground to steady himself. "You're starting to piss me off, kid." He snarled, his voice booming like thunder. Aiden didn't care. His anger consumed him, his attacks relentless. He leapt high into the air, wind spiraling around his body. "Sky Dragon's roar." He screamed, unleashing a torrent of compressed air that struck Juggernaut like a hurricane. The force pushed the behemoth back, dust and debris flying in every direction. For the first time, Juggernaut grimaced, the impact visibly affecting him. He planted his feet firmly, his muscles bulging as he pushed against the gale. "You think that's enough to stop me?" Juggernaut roared, his voice cutting through the storm. Aiden landed, his breaths heavy, his fists clenched. He could feel the power coursing through him, but it was wild, uncontrollable. The rage clouded his judgment, and in his fury, he failed to notice Juggernaut's next move. The massive mutant surged forward, faster than anyone his size had a right to be. Before Aiden could react, Juggernaut's colossal fist connected with his torso. The impact was devastating. Aiden's body shot backward like a missile, the force ripping through the battlefield. He crashed into the ground, tumbling uncontrollably before skidding to a halt. Unbeknownst to Aiden, his trajectory took him directly past Frenzy, who stood victorious over the rest of his team. She barely turned in time to see his battered form fly by, her smirk widening. The forest was alive with the sounds of battle. The clash of claws against claws echoed through the trees, mingling with the growls and snarls of two feral beasts locked in mortal combat. Wolverine crouched low, his adamantium claws gleaming under the moonlight, his breathing ragged but controlled. Across from him, Sabretooth grinned wickedly, blood dripping from his claws, his yellow eyes glowing with savage glee. "You look tired, runt," Sabretooth taunted, circling him like a predator. "Ain't like you to let yourself get distracted. Worried about the kids back there, huh? What a good little daddy you've become." Logan didn't rise to the bait, his focus unyielding. "Stay sharp, bub. Don't let him get in your head. The kids can hold their own, just gotta finish this fast." With a roar, Sabretooth lunged, his claws aimed for Wolverine's chest. Logan met him head-on, their claws colliding with a metallic screech that reverberated through the forest. Sparks flew as the two clawed mutants grappled, their strength nearly evenly matched. "You're slowing down, Logan," Sabretooth sneered, pushing him back. "Getting soft." Logan smirked grimly. "Soft enough to shove my claws down your throat." He twisted, breaking Sabretooth's grip and slashing upward in one fluid motion. The strike caught Sabretooth across the chest, tearing through muscle and sinew. Sabretooth howled in pain but retaliated instantly, raking his claws across Wolverine's side. Logan staggered but recovered quickly, his healing factor already working to close the wound. He countered with a feral slash to Sabretooth's thigh, forcing him to stumble. "Keep him off balance. Don't give him a chance to recover." "You're predictable, Logan," Sabretooth growled, spitting blood as he charged again. "Same tricks, same moves. You never learn." This time, Sabretooth feinted left, then swung right, catching Wolverine in the ribs and sending him crashing into a tree. Logan groaned, shaking his head as he pulled himself up, glaring daggers at his opponent. "Better predictable than stupid," Logan shot back, lunging forward. The battle escalated, each strike more brutal than the last. Logan's claws ripped into Sabretooth's arm, nearly severing it, but Sabretooth retaliated by grabbing Logan by the head and slamming him into the ground. The forest floor was soon slick with their blood, the scent of iron heavy in the air. "Why don't you just stay down, runt?" Sabretooth snarled, towering over Logan. "You can't keep this up forever." Logan's lip curled into a snarl as he pushed himself to his feet, blood dripping from his mouth. "Forever's all I got." With a burst of feral speed, Wolverine launched himself at Sabretooth, driving his claws into his shoulder and twisting them viciously. Sabretooth roared, grabbing Logan and tossing him into a nearby boulder. But Logan recovered midair, landing on all fours like a predator ready to pounce. "You're done, Creed," Logan growled, his claws gleaming as he advanced. Sabretooth, bleeding profusely, bared his teeth in defiance. "Not by your hand, you little." Logan moved like lightning, his claws slashing through Sabretooth's torso. With a final, guttural cry, he drove Sabretooth to the ground, pinning him there. "This ends here," Logan said, raising his claws for the killing blow. But just as he prepared to strike, something yanked him backward with incredible force. Logan's back slammed against a tree, pinning him in place. He struggled against the invisible grip, snarling in frustration. From the shadows, a man stepped into the clearing, his silhouette tall and imposing. His sharp, calculating eyes gleamed under the moonlight, and a cold smirk played across his lips. Behind him, several figures emerged, their postures tense and ready for action. "I can't be having you killing off my subordinates now, can I, Logan?" the man said, his voice smooth yet chilling. Aiden landed amidst the battlefield, the air thick with dust and tension. His eyes locked onto Pyotr, who was holding his ground against Juggernaut. Each punch Pyotr threw was a symphony of strength, but his once impenetrable metal skin now bore jagged cracks, glinting ominously under the scattered sunlight. "Pyotr, fall back," Aiden yelled, his voice sharp with urgency. Pyotr ignored him, delivering another thunderous punch to Juggernaut's jaw. The towering menace barely flinched, retaliating with a shoulder charge that connected like a wrecking ball. Pyotr was sent careening into a fractured tree trunk, the impact splitting it cleanly in two as he slumped to the ground, struggling to rise. "Pyotr!" Aiden's heart pounded, his anger surging. Juggernaut turned to face the newcomer, his grin wide and menacing. "You're back, huh? Thought I'd finished you off the first time. Guess you're as dumb as you are weak, kid." Aiden ignored the taunt. Wind began to swirl around him, lifting dust and debris as his magic flared. His body moved with precision, every motion calculated. "You're done underestimating me." Juggernaut roared with laughter, his booming voice reverberating through the battlefield. "Underestimate you? You're a gnat. A bug I can squash any time I want." Before Juggernaut could finish his tirade, Aiden surged forward, his foot encased in shimmering iron and propelled by the howling winds of his magic. The kick collided with Juggernaut's ribs, the force sending the giant skidding back several feet. Juggernaut's expression darkened as he steadied himself, planting his feet firmly into the ground. "That's it. You just signed your death warrant." He charged, an unstoppable force of pure mass and rage. The ground trembled beneath his feet as he bore down on Aiden, arms outstretched like battering rams. "Too slow," Aiden yelled, leaping high into the air with a gust of wind propelling him. His movements were fluid, almost dancer-like, as he twisted midair to avoid Juggernaut's devastating charge. As he descended, Aiden's leg transformed, the iron encasing it morphing into a deadly lance surrounded by spiraling winds. The lance gleamed like a blade caught in the sunlight, radiating raw power. "Sky Iron Dragon Lance," he roared, plunging his attack downward. The impact was cataclysmic. The lance slammed into the center of Juggernaut's helmet with a deafening crack. The force of the blow created a shockwave that rippled through the clearing, scattering loose debris. Juggernaut stumbled back, his footing faltering for the first time. The helmet, Juggernaut's famed, indestructible barrier, had a visible fissure running down the middle. A single, unmistakable bead of blood trickled from his nose. "You made me bleed. No one makes me bleed." Aiden landed lightly on his feet, the winds around him still howling with his power. His chest rose and fell with each labored breath, but his gaze was unwavering. "There's more where that came from, big guy." Juggernaut let out a roar that shook the forest, slamming his fists together. "I'll crush you into dust." As Juggernaut barreled toward him again, Aiden used his wind magic to dash to the side, moving faster than the human eye could follow. He struck Juggernaut's wounded leg with a spinning kick, the iron encasing his foot shattering part of the ground beneath them. Juggernaut bellowed in pain, staggering slightly, but his sheer size and strength made it impossible to bring him down entirely. Aiden pressed on, channeling his fury into his attacks. Sky Dragon's roar. Aiden inhaled deeply, then unleashed a concentrated cyclone of wind from his mouth. The attack hit Juggernaut squarely, forcing him to halt his advance. "Is that all you've got?" Juggernaut yelled, planting his feet and pushing through the gale. Aiden's frustration mounted. His strikes, his strongest spells, they were landing, but Juggernaut wasn't falling. He was an immovable wall, and Aiden could feel his strength waning. His breaths came faster, his vision blurring slightly from exhaustion. 1. As Aiden prepared another attack, Juggernaut closed the gap between them with terrifying speed. A massive fist swung toward him like a wrecking ball, too fast for Aiden to dodge. The punch connected, sending Aiden hurtling through the air. He crashed into the ground, the impact carving a deep trench in the dirt. His body ached, but he forced himself to rise, his eyes blazing with defiance. "You're tough, kid," Juggernaut said, walking toward him slowly, his shadow stretching over the battlefield. "But not tough enough." Juggernaut moved quick to punch Aiden. As Aiden stood, the winds around him swirling protectively, his fists clenched. This wasn't over. Not yet. Before the strike could connect, Pyotr stepped in with a defiant roar, crossing his arms and blocking the incoming punch. "Oh? You're still fighting?" Juggernaut sneered, his tone dripping with condescension. Pyotr gritted his teeth, his muscles straining as he managed to push back against the overwhelming force. "Get up, Aiden," he yelled, sweat trickling down his face. Using Pyotr as a distraction, Aiden forced himself to his feet, every movement an effort against his bruised and battered body. With a surge of wind magic propelling him upward, he leapt into the air and delivered a powerful kick, his iron-coated foot slamming into Juggernaut's helmet. The strike reverberated through the battlefield, forcing Juggernaut to stagger back. The momentary opening allowed Pyotr to charge forward, his fists hammering Juggernaut's gut in a relentless barrage of punches. The metallic clang of his blows echoed as each strike landed with everything he had left. "Now," Pyotr shouted, his voice raw with exertion. Aiden summoned a fiery surge of energy, his magic shifting into a blazing inferno. "Fire Dragon's Claw," he roared, launching his flaming attack toward Juggernaut's face. The fireball exploded upon impact, engulfing Juggernaut in flames and forcing him to stumble back several steps. Juggernaut swatted at the flames on his face as he roared in anger. His helmet was scorched, the edges glowing faintly from the intense heat. He glared at the two battered fighters with unbridled fury. "Thanks, Pyotr," Aiden said, his breath labored as he steadied himself. Pyotr nodded grimly, his voice steady despite the obvious toll the battle was taking on him. "We need to work together. Until Logan gets back, we're not doing any real damage." Juggernaut rose to his full height, his expression now twisted into a mask of rage. "All right," he growled, his voice shaking the earth, "you two little shits have officially gotten on my last fucking nerve. No more games. This won't end with injuries anymore. I'm killing you." The air around them seemed to grow heavier as Juggernaut moved, faster and more aggressive than before. Aiden and Pyotr split up, trying to enact a strategy of covering one another and striking at openings. But Juggernaut's next move was beyond anything they expected. He surged toward Pyotr, his fist barreling forward with unrelenting force. Pyotr crossed his arms, his iron-coated skin bracing for impact. The punch connected. A deafening crack echoed as Pyotr's iron skin shattered like glass, revealing his human flesh beneath. Both of his arms twisted unnaturally, broken instantly by the sheer force of the blow. Pyotr screamed in agony, collapsing to his knees as his hands hung useless at his sides. "Pyotr," Aiden shouted, his voice cracking with panic. Without hesitation, he launched himself at Juggernaut, his leg transforming once more into a sky iron dragon's lance. He aimed for Juggernaut's chest, hoping to create a moment of reprieve for his injured teammate. But Juggernaut caught Aiden's leg midair with terrifying ease, his massive hand clamping down like a vice. With a guttural growl, he slammed Aiden into the ground face first, the impact sending a shockwave through the battlefield. Again. And again. Each slam was more brutal than the last, leaving Aiden's limp body sprawled in a crater of dirt and debris. Blood trickled from his forehead as he struggled to stay conscious, the world around him spinning. Juggernaut raised his foot, aiming to end Aiden's life with a final, crushing stomp. But Pyotr, broken and beaten, refused to give up. With a final surge of willpower, he tackled Juggernaut from the side, throwing everything he had left into the desperate act. It was futile. Juggernaut barely moved an inch. He grabbed Pyotr by the throat, lifting him effortlessly off the ground. Pyotr's iron skin tried to reform, cracks spreading like spiderwebs as Juggernaut's grip tightened. Aiden, barely conscious, watched in horror as Juggernaut's monstrous strength overwhelmed his friend. "No. Pyotr," he croaked, his voice barely audible. With a sickening snap, Juggernaut broke Pyotr's neck. The lifeless body of Colossus crumpled to the ground, his iron skin vanishing completely. Juggernaut looked down at the fallen mutant, his sneer twisted into one of cruel satisfaction too. "One down," Juggernaut said coldly, turning his gaze back to the broken form of Aiden. "Your turn, kid." Pyotr's lifeless body crumpled to the ground, and the sight sent a shockwave through Aiden's core. His heart pounded with a feral intensity, and something deep within him snapped. Rage, raw, unrelenting, and volcanic, flooded his veins. "Pyotr!" Aiden's voice roared across the battlefield, filled with anguish and fury. His skin began to change, dragon-like scales forming across his face and arms as his magic surged uncontrollably. Flames erupted from his body, licking the air with wild intensity. The ground beneath him charred, and his eyes burned like molten lava. Juggernaut turned, unimpressed at first, but hesitated for a fraction of a second as he saw Aiden's transformation. "Oh, you want to play dragon, kid? Bring it." Aiden lunged forward, his fist engulfed in blazing flames and reinforced with iron magic. "Fire Dragon's iron fist," he bellowed, his punch slamming into Juggernaut's chest with the force of a cannon. The giant stumbled backward, his feet digging trenches into the earth as he fought to regain balance. But Aiden wasn't done. He launched himself into the air, twisting his body into a spiraling inferno. "Fire Dragon Sword Horn," he shouted, colliding with Juggernaut like a fiery missile. The impact sent Juggernaut skidding back, his armor glowing faintly red from the heat. Juggernaut growled, shaking off the attack. "You're just pissing me off now." He swung a massive fist toward Aiden, but the boy moved with a speed born of rage. Dodging to the side, Aiden landed on Juggernaut's outstretched arm and sprinted up its length with draconic agility. Flames swirled in his mouth as he unleashed a torrent of fiery destruction. Fire Dragon's roar. The blast struck Juggernaut directly in the face, flames pouring into the cracks and openings of his helmet. Juggernaut screamed in agony, the searing heat invading his senses. Smoke billowed from his helmet as he flailed, trying to extinguish the fire. Aiden pressed his advantage. With a roar of fury, he coated his fist in iron and magic once more, delivering a devastating punch to Juggernaut's burning helmet. Iron Dragon's lance, he shouted, the force of the blow denting the helmet further and sending sparks flying. But his rage wasn't sated. Consumed by the primal instincts of his dragon slayer magic, Aiden opened his mouth wide and clamped down on Juggernaut's helmet, biting through the searing metal. The taste of molten iron filled his senses as he tore away half of the helmet, swallowing it to replenish his magic reserves. Juggernaut roared in pain and fury as the exposed side of his face came into view, his skin red and blistering. Aiden wasted no time, unleashing another fire dragon's roar directly onto the vulnerable flesh. Flames engulfed Juggernaut's exposed eye and cheek, melting the skin and leaving his face a horrifying mess of burns and scars. Juggernaut staggered, clutching at his injured face, his remaining eye wild with rage and desperation. Aiden raised his fist, his iron-coated arm glowing with molten energy. This is the end, he roared, leaping toward Juggernaut to deliver a final, devastating blow. But just as he was about to strike, something hit him with incredible force, sending him flying across the battlefield. He crashed into the ground, the impact carving a deep trench in the earth. Dazed and struggling to rise, Aiden looked up to see a shadowy figure standing between him and Juggernaut. The figure's presence radiated menace. The air grew tense as the figure stepped forward, his voice cutting through the battlefield chaos like a blade. You had one damn objective, Kane. One. The man bellowed, fury evident in every word. Kidnap the girl and leave the kids alone. The speaker was none other than Magneto, the infamous mutant terrorist and one of the most powerful mutants in the world. His magnetic aura crackled with restrained energy as he stood tall, surveying the carnage. Behind him, a group of mutants emerged, their expressions a mix of shock and apprehension as they took in the sight before them. The bloody bodies of two young mutants, the body of Frenzy, and the almost unrecognizable, severely injured Juggernaut lay sprawled at the feet of a single boy, Aiden. Look at this mess, Magneto continued, his voice cold and steady, but laced with frustration. Aiden, his flame still smoldering, glared at the group with unrelenting rage. I will kill you all. He screamed, his voice shaking with fury as he struggled to rise, summoning more flames to his battered body. But Magneto barely reacted. With a flick of his hand, Aiden was stopped in his tracks as Logan's unconscious body was lifted by Magneto's magnetic powers and held before the boy. The unspoken threat was clear. Aiden hesitated, his fists trembling as his flames faltered. He gritted his teeth, the sight of Wolverine's limp form causing him to waver. Damn you! He muttered, his fiery aura dimming. Suddenly, lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the battlefield. A jet descended rapidly, and from its ramp emerged Storm, her white hair billowing as she dropped to the ground. Behind her, Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Beast leapt down, ready for confrontation. Beast immediately climbed atop a nearby van, his voice booming. Eric. Magneto turned, his face softening for a moment. Hank. And a few old friends. My, what a reunion. I must apologize for the mess here. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Cyclops glared, his visor glinting. Save it, Magneto. This ends here. The tension only escalated as Professor Charles Xavier descended in his wheelchair, his expression somber and unyielding. You've gone too far, Eric. Too far, he said, his voice laced with disappointment. 2 of my children. You killed them. Is this the life you want to lead? Magneto's face hardened. You know damn well this wasn't what I wanted, he snapped. I despise the loss of mutant lives as much as you do, Charles. But this is your mistake. Sending children on missions like these? Their deaths are on your hands, not mine. He gestured toward Wolverine, who was still suspended in the air. Now, unless you want to see what the inside of Logan looks like up close, I suggest you don't escalate this further. Aiden, however, was beyond reason. I will not let you go. He screamed, his flames reigniting. I will kill you. You're dead. Dead. He lunged forward, but Jean Grey restrained him with her telekinesis. Let me go, Aiden roared, thrashing against her invisible grip. Tears welled in his eyes. They killed Sam. They killed Pyotr. Magneto's voice cut through his cries like ice. And you killed Frenzy and disfigured Juggernaut. I'd say we're even, boy. Unless, of course, you want to add Logan's death to your tally. With a signal from Magneto, Mystique stepped forward, her expression unreadable. She approached Rogue's unconscious form with gloved hands, carefully lifting the girl. The X-Men tensed, but Magneto raised his hand, warning them. Watch it. Magneto growled. I will kill him here and now. You know I will, Charles. The X-Men hesitated, unwilling to risk Logan's life. Mystique retreated to Magneto's side, Rogue secure in her grasp. Magneto smirked. "Now, come here, my little friends," he said, his voice smooth and commanding. To Aiden's horror, Amara and John stepped forward, their heads lowered in submission. "What the hell are you doing?" Aiden shouted, his voice breaking. Magneto answered for them. "They've seen the truth, young one. We mutants are the superior race. Living under humans, bowing to their whims as Charles does, it's beneath us. They've chosen the right side of history. I pray you do the same." He paused, his eyes gleaming with admiration. "You've impressed me, Aiden. Greatly." Aiden's disgust was palpable. "Remember me well, Eric," he spat. "I'll find you, and I will kill you. I'll burn your skin and tear your body apart, limb by limb." Magneto chuckled softly at the threat, nodding to one of his mutants. A portal opened behind him, shimmering with ominous energy. As Magneto and his group began to retreat, Logan's unconscious body was unceremoniously dropped to the ground. Aiden watched helplessly, his rage simmering as Magneto disappeared into the portal, leaving behind only chaos and shattered lives.